Whether you have children or not, most Manitobans are familiar with the portion of the Health Sciences Centre that houses Children's Hospital. And you know that when your children have an urgent need for medical care and you're close enough to take them to be seen at Children's Emergency, that they are going to receive the very best possible care. But at Children's Hospital, you find not only a caring staff committed to helping your child get better, but a group of medical investigators dedicated to unlocking the mysteries of infant and child disease. Children's Hospital, along with the state-of-the-art research center, the Manitoba Institute of Child Health, houses a crack team of physicians and researchers who study, gather data, explore, and investigate, looking for clues to save lives, make sick kids well again, and to prevent them from getting ill in the first place. Join us on this episode of Doctor's Care as we meet a few of these determined medical detectives. Dr. Cheryl Greenberg is compassionate and sincere about solving the mysteries of rare genetic disease. She believes the answers can only be found through extensive research.
You can't provide the best care to your patients unless you have a firm basis and understanding about the disease and have that passion to try to help understand the cause, the root cause, and to develop treatments. And that's what research is all about.
While attending the Faculty of Science at McGill University in Montreal, Dr. Greenberg became fascinated by human genetics.
I had excellent training at McGill, and when I finished my medical school, and I did my pediatric training, and I did my genetic training, which involved introduction to research. I knew I wanted a career that combined clinical care and research, to always try to be at the cutting edge, to be able to offer the best to my patients. And I moved to Winnipeg, for 6 more months of training in 1979, and I never left.
I'm Dr. Greenberg, Cheryl Greenberg. I'm one of the subspecialists here at the hospital. And did you know that I was asked to come and see your daughter?
No, I didn't. I wasn't aware.
Well, I know she's been in hospital for a few days and she's getting better, but I'm in a specialty of pediatrics that very often I'm asked to see children who've had muscle problems. All right, you want to have a lie down for a second? On your back. I'll cover you with the sheet. Okay, I'm just going to feel your tummy. Okay, does it hurt anywhere now? No? All right. Let me know if this hurts at all. Can you bend your knees up for me? There you go. Because sometimes that relaxes the muscle and it makes it easier to feel.
Dr. Greenberg has been recognized as one of Canada's top 100 most powerful women by the Women's Executive Network for her groundbreaking work in rare genetic disorders.
I've seen so many advances in the treatment of rare diseases. Treatments have only developed through research. And about 5 years ago, I had the opportunity, to lead the clinical team of investigating a new drug for the treatment of a disorder that I've seen many times here in Manitoba over the past 35 years that have caused the death of many infants.
The disorder, hypophosphatasia, robs bones of the minerals they require for strength and durability. Infants have suffered broken bones during birth. Older children can sustain frequent and dangerous fractures. Dr. Greenberg indicates that clinical research trials of drugs like ENB0040 for hypophosphatasia and other important research is putting the University of Manitoba and Children's Hospital on the map in the field of metabolic genetics.
Children and adults are coming here now from around the world to participate in clinical trials.
In October 2008, 11-month-old Amy Tinsley from Belfast, Ireland, became the first to receive the experimental treatment. Amy had suffered numerous bone fractures before she was even born. After 22 weeks, baby Amy was well enough to go home.
The results of the early treatment trials of this drug have been nothing short of astounding. And in my field of rare genetic diseases, to be able to save a life, it doesn't get any better.
Amy is now an active 5-year-old. While still under a doctor's care at home in Belfast, she is riding her bike and can skip and play with friends. Her mom, Leanne, is sincerely grateful to Dr. Greenberg and the team at Manitoba's Children's Hospital.
When I graduated from medicine, I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do in life when I grew up. I was young, I graduated quite young. And then the subsequent dean said to me, well, he says, why don't you go out in the country and spend a year or two? And I went to Dauphin, and the year and two became 10. But that was the 1970s, and during that decade, we were really seeing the front edge of the asthma epidemic, the early part of what really has become the allergy epidemic over the last part of the last century and continuing especially explosively now in this 21st century in terms of food allergy.
3,500 children from across Canada have been involved in the Child Study, an extensive research project which investigates both genetic disposition and environmental factors on children's development, particularly as those factors relate to asthma and allergies.
I don't know where you going, Appy. You funny. You are funny. You're a funny guy. Yes.
I mean, we set out to do a prevention of asthma study. And at that point, although we thought we knew everything we needed to know about asthma, when we began to think about the environment, our thinking was way too limited. And it's not just the dog and cat and dust mite that you breathe in, and it's not just tobacco smoke that you're exposed to, and it's not just the out-of-door pollution. It's way more than that. It's our nutrition. It's the stress that we live under. It's all sorts of things that you don't begin to think of. Chemical exposures, the exposures to allergens may in fact be good. We've never thought about exposure to bacteria as a good thing, but in the last few years we're recognizing the bacteria that lives in us and live on us really play an important role in the development of our immune system and the development of health or disease.
So when you think about the studies that you're doing right now, there are other bits of information that are going to come in that'll probably pertain to completely different areas of healthcare.
Absolutely. And so the child study where we're focusing on asthma and allergy as the main outcomes really is the lead-in to following these children, where we're really intensively studying their genetic background, the environment, their response to the environment. I anticipate that this is going to be a really important group of children and families that we need to follow until these kids are into at least their young adult years.
I was just going to ask that because I understand that the study was originally planned as a 5-year study, and you're coming to the end of that now. But you're not going to let these kids go now, right?
We originally planned child to follow from the womb till age 5, when they're school age. And by age 5, we expect to see around 15 kids out of 100 who will have asthma and others who will have other allergy-associated diseases.
So you'll be able to extrapolate, though, from the information that you already have from them.
Oh, absolutely. The work we're doing in terms of looking at the genetics has become increasingly inexpensive. So we can now analyze an entire genome for a reasonable amount of money. And we are collecting samples that we anticipate we will be analyzing in years to come for all sorts of things we haven't yet begun to think about.
There's been this big increase in asthma, an epidemic, as you say. Why?
I wish I had an answer for you. We know that the epidemic has been dramatic over the last part of the last century for asthma. But what we've seen explode in the beginning of the 21st century has been food allergy. It has skyrocketed in terms of how much food allergy is out there, and it's really scary. In the 1990s, every national pediatric medical organization said, we're seeing all of this allergy and asthma, maybe we should tell families that they shouldn't be introducing these highly allergenic foods too early to their children. Don't give your kid cow's milk till they're a year of age. Don't give them eggs till they're 18 months of age. Don't give them peanut till they're in university. All of that has been associated with a dramatic increase in food allergies. And there's some evidence that early introduction of at least some of these foods may actually decrease the risk of developing allergy. We said, get rid of your pets. Well, it may be, in fact, that having pets in the home will help prevent development of asthma and allergy. But maybe that's only if you're not too clean in your home. And the whole issue of this hygiene hypothesis, that we in the 20th century became too clean for our own good, and that we need to have some of these early life exposures to bacteria.
Microflora, the bacteria that reside within the gut, play a significant role in the development of the immune system.
One of the earliest publications we have from child is actually about that. In fact, we sent this in about the difference in bacteria in the guts of infants at 3 months of age, which is when we collect poop from these kids in the child study. We've known for decades that if you're delivered by cesarean section, you have a small but significant increased risk of that child having asthma, and have had no idea why. Well, in this study, we were able to show that if you were delivered by cesarean section, you had a hugely different gut microflora, bacteria in your gut at 3 months of age compared to kids that had a normal vaginal delivery. And that was modified to some degree by breastfeeding. So that breastfeeding, good. Will it prevent asthma? Can't promise that, but it's a good thing for all sorts of reasons. But cesarean sections, now a quarter of the deliveries in Canada, a third of deliveries in the United States, is definitely associated with an increased risk, and it may be because of the bacteria in our gut.
So I imagine around the world there are people that are aware of this study and that are anxiously awaiting the results that happen at the end of this 5 years.
Absolutely, and well before the 5 years. In fact, we're constantly being bothered by our colleagues in the United States especially, where they've had a great deal of difficulty putting together a national birth cohort. They are drooling when they look at what we have in Canada. Everybody's interested in poop.
Miserydia Health Center has shaped healthcare in Manitoba since 1898, when the Sisters of Miserydia came to Winnipeg to care for single mothers and their children. Miserydia Health Center's focus was as groundbreaking then as it is today, and we are literally breaking ground. When you drive by Miserydia, you can see the workers renewing our century-old building. Our projects include the Buhler Eye Care Center, Western Canada's largest comprehensive surgical and treatment program, Prime, a day health center designed to keep seniors living in their own homes, and the Great West Life Rooftop Garden and Solarium, providing long-term residents with fresh air in a safe and private spot high above Winnipeg's busy streets. And to finish, we need your help. In addition to the commitment from the provincial government, Miserydia Health Center Foundation is asking the community for $7 million in private investment. We're almost there, having secure gifts of $5.6 million. We only have $1.4 million to go. Call 204-788-8458 to donate, or go online to miserydiafoundation.com. Thank you.
Originally from Libya, Dr. Aziz Mani always knew he wanted to help people. One area of medicine that particularly drives him is being able to provide patients and their families with a diagnosis.
I think I'm quite confident to say that it's quite unlikely that we're dealing with anything serious that is a cause of the incident she had.
Your passion, is it about solving the mystery of why it happened or how to deal with it once it's there?
That's a very good question. So the passion I have and the interest I take in every single encounter I have in my life is with the intention or with the ultimate goal of wanting to make a diagnosis where I could make a significant intervention in the management and the treatment. There is a lot of mysteries, but my focus in the more recent 10 to 15 years has been more on conditions that has to do with metabolic diseases or how the body is able to handle and break down different components of things we take in our diet, like carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And this may sound simple, but there are a lot of intricate processes that happen in our body to allow each cell in our body to function the way it should in a concerted fashion. And anything that can go awry in any of these intricate processes can present in a specific disease that the doctors will see in the clinic. I'm quite reassured with all the information I've gathered today from the blood test she had yesterday and from her examination today. I think we're going to hear about you in Hollywood or something. Seriously. Some of the common encounters that we see in our clinic are children who present with developmental difficulties, children who present with seizures, children who have difficulties with maintaining their glucose or have hypoglycemia, and also children who have muscle weakness.
One of the children both Dr. Manny and Dr. Greenberg see on a regular basis is Clausen Andrushko. Clausen's mom Dana recalls that when he was just a baby, she became concerned about his appearance.
When he was a baby, he was very chubby. His belly was protruding. It looked almost like a bowling ball, a little bowling ball in his belly. And then at around 8.5 months, he had a really bad seizure. Seizure was the scariest thing that we've ever seen. Brings back awful memories for us, because when you look at him, it was so scary. His pupils were completely dilated. It was like his eyes were black, and he just was staring at nothing and just convulsing.
Clausen was diagnosed with glycogen storage disease type 1A.
He's an old pro at this, so he's probably been poked a few 100,000 times in his life. 4.3, so that means that he has to eat his special mixture. We have everything pre-measured here. He's got some medicine that he needs at night, but this is his sugar water we make every day, and we have it in case of emergencies. That's a fast boost to get his sugars up as well. But this is what he's on all night. He'll get this whole feed in his feeding pump. So, Clausen, you want to come over here? And we'll show them how it's done. Just plug that in. And then he gets a fast little feed. Some people take a long time, but he just prefers to get it done and over with, and it doesn't upset his tummy, so.
Do you feel that going in, Clausen?
A little bit.
A little bit. You're pretty used to it, of course.
And we're done. During the night, actually, he's hooked up to a feeding pump for a constant source of nutrition so that he could get an adequate rest. And it feeds him this dextrose solution at a slow rate throughout the night. And yeah, when he's ready to wake up for school at around 7 in the morning, I unhook him and we start off our day as usual.
Dr. Manny is about to begin a clinical trial on a new product called Glycosade Superstarch.
If the trial goes well on Clausen, all the GSD kids in Manitoba will be able to try this product and will be off the feeding pump at night. It'll allow a full night's sleep, an 8-hour duration of normal blood sugar levels, so that'll be huge for us. It'll be life-changing.
When Ethan Burnell was 4 years old, his mother started noticing little changes in his behavior.
In the mornings, he didn't want to come down the stairs. I was starting to be late for work. So I started following up with the pediatrician as to what might be going on. And, with a bit of investigation, we, alerted everyone in his life that we weren't sure what was going on, but, if you noticed anything, to let us know. The daycare called me one day and said that he was a little difficult to wake up from his nap, and they would have never normally called me, but I'd said anything, and I took him to see the pediatrician that day. And the pediatrician performed what's called Romberg's test, had him close his eyes and stick out his arms and give him a little shove, and healthy kids take a step back and kids with brain tumors don't. And so we were sent to have a CT that next morning. And after he had the CT, we didn't leave the hospital for a month.
The family received the horrifying news that Ethan had a brain tumor.
Well, it's obviously devastating, but I always say in a really strange way. It was, it felt like yelling underwater when I knew something was wrong, but nobody knew what it was. And finally, when we knew what it was, and the doctors and their staff and their team were prepared to take over, and this is what we're going to do. It was actually in a really bizarre way a relief. My husband's a physician, so you don't just go into brain surgery on your 4-year-old without doing some investigation. My husband made all the calls, and they said, you're absolutely where you need to be, that the pediatric neurosurgeon that we had was, among the best, that we had, great care in Manitoba. So we chose. We are Manitobans, but we chose to be here because this is where the best care was. Ethan's had 2 brain surgeries. The first surgery was what was called a ventricular ostomy, and it was actually at the time considered, I don't know if experimental is the right word, but it was cutting edge. So normally they have a tube that drains your brain, and we had such a cutting edge neurosurgeon that he thought Ethan was a candidate for this ventricular ostomy. And what it means is that Ethan doesn't have a shunt in his head. They used his own ventricles in his brain to drain his brain. That was the first surgery because they had to relieve the pressure in his brain so that they could safely remove the tumor. And then his second brain surgery was to remove the tumor. Following his second brain surgery, he couldn't walk or talk or eat. He was actually in a coma for several days. And when he woke up, the little boy we'd known was completely gone.
At the time of Ethan's diagnosis, JJ was pregnant with twin daughters.
In 1 year, I had 3 kids in the ICU at Children's. We've had some amazing care from, the girls in Ethan's pediatrician being a real advocate for us on getting out of the hospital and coming home and being a family. And when your kid's in the ICU, it's terrible. But at the same time, we've never doubted for a minute that we've had the best quality. I used to think the bedside didn't matter. I just wanted the best doctor, but I was wrong. I also want the best bedside, and we've really had that here too. I'm extremely grateful to all of the kids' doctors.
While the family was originally warned that Ethan might not ever walk or talk again, through determination and hard work, his recovery has been astounding.
That you've been through a lot, right?
Yeah. I recognize all the things I've had to overcome. I had to go through speech therapy and physiotherapy to learn how to do all these things again. My mom, she almost never left the hospital. I don't actually think she ever did when I was sick. And my sisters weren't there at the time, but they've been supportive of me for as long as I can remember. And my dad, he was really, really caring for me.
And how are things for you now?
Things are good. I've started playing sports. I've started excelling in academic courses. I've actually started playing a sport I never knew was a sport, rugby.
Are some good friends?
Yes, I do.
And they're okay with the fact that they know that you got to be a little bit careful from time to time?
Yeah, I've got one friend, his name is Isaac. He's really, really just keeping an eye out for me.
Dr. Terry Clausen studied pediatric medicine in Manitoba and his career took him first to Ottawa and then to Alberta. In 2007, he was recruited back to head up the new Manitoba Institute of Child Health.
The Children's Hospital here in Winnipeg has a long history of research, and the Foundation's done an amazing job raising funding for that. But at some point it became obvious that they needed to organize that activity a little more and also have a place where they could recruit scientists and a place to work. And so in 2007 they formed the Manitoba Institute of Child Health, and you can see the 2 floors here in the John Buehler Research Center are now dedicated research space for child health.
Is Mitch developing a reputation so that you are able to attract top researchers here?
We really have a sense of that in the last few years. We've seen important and significant growth at Mitch. Highly qualified professionals. One example would be a pediatric surgeon who has skills of minimally invasive surgery. He chose to come here because of Mitch and the environment. Some of our best basic scientists from the University of Alberta or from other places have chosen to relocate here in the province because of Mitch, because of the environment. So we really have seen that change happen. The growth is happening, and we know that we're having a big impact because of the support we get from people in Manitoba.
Sounds like you're quite proud of this organization.
I'm proud of the scientists and the staff that work here at Mitch. It's a very collaborative, collegial environment. We really think we've become the go-to place, and it's become a very attractive place to come and work. And because of the cause, we're trying to improve knowledge and make a difference in the lives of children and family. And we know the only way we're ultimately really going to improve the care of children is through new knowledge and improving research. So that really gets us up every morning to kind of come to work and make that difference.
As an example, one of Dr. Clausen's master's students developed an artificial bronchia. This will mean medications can be tested on human cells without having to test on actual children. It represents a significant achievement.
Few places in the world have actually created an artificial trachea. So Min here has really done some of the fundamental work in developing this airway right here in Manitoba. I think we're world leaders in this area. It was a very exciting moment at Research Rounds when you saw how close to reality and how close we are to actually creating this as an entity, and how close we are. I mean, just think of the exciting breakthroughs that we could have in new treatments and therapies for kids.
Unlocking the mysteries of infant and childhood disease is an ongoing process, and these dedicated physicians never tire in their search for answers. Part healthcare clinician, part investigating detectives, they are relentless in their pursuit of new treatments and cures.
This is all I have always done. I've since I was 5, I was in Scouts. In Scouts, 45 or 50 years ago, that when I lived it, this was the whole theme of Scouts, is that you need to help others. Every single day you need to do a good deed and a good thing, so that we always tie the knot in the handkerchief we have. And you cannot untie it unless you have done a good deed. So this is what I've done since I was 5, and that's just the way I grew up.
Dr. Greenberg is very special to me. If we didn't meet her, he wouldn't be alive today, I don't think. No, she's fantastic. We love her. She's a miracle doctor to us.